going to call the Municipal Building Commission to order at 5:30 on January 8th, 2024. For the record, we have Jerry Freecott, Jay Allard, Gail Clark, Jackie Romanicki, Ed Stanton, Terry DeSisto, and myself. That gives us a quorum. The minutes from November 6th, I don't think we got, because I don't remember seeing them in the package. Were they in the package?
No.
No, I don't think so, so we'll skip that. And I think we're going to start with the Willett window wall. So Anjanette, are you here?
Yeah,
Good to see you.
good to see you as well.
So, what's happening?
So, we have a couple of invoices to approve. All of the work is complete. The permit was closed out yesterday. Socotec has issued the final completion documents, and JJ Cardosi, now that they have the permit closed out, will be working on getting the rest of the closeout documents, and we hope to have everything wrapped up for the next meeting on the 22nd. I believe it's a special meeting. If not, then we'll wait till the next one, and that'll be just for the release, their final invoice for the release of their retainage. So this week, we just have a couple of invoices to approve. I don't know if you wanted to do those now or wait until we get to it at the meeting, at the minutes rather.
Yeah, you can, I see two items on our agenda. One is your bill for $10,440, and the other
Right.
is Cardozi for $16,149.59, application number 4. So
That's correct.
I'm going to assume that Brooke, by putting this on here, says that yours is okay to pay.
That's right, and that, right, and that's the
Andrew.
remainder of the hours that we had with project oversight.
Okay, just for the record, Andrew Acosta is here as well, so now we have a full house. So will there be another application, or is this the final one from JJ Cardozi?
So there will be a final application, which will be the retainages, which is 5% being withheld right now. And then there'll be a final invoice from Socotec as well. They have $1,850 remaining in their contract, and we'll have those two at the next meeting for approval. And that should be everything with the closeout documents, 100% complete.
Okay. I also see on our agenda ratification of price difference on change order number 2.
Yes, so change order number 2 was for the expansion joint, and we got the pricing reviewed, we got it all accepted, approved, all of that, and then it was realized that they needed some additional caulking for the installation. So it actually, we marked it up just and amended the change order. The original change order value was $5,188.24. The additional caulking added another $297.94, which brought the new total to $5,486.18. This was reviewed and confirmed by both Skanska and Socotec.
Okay, so you need a motion for us to approve the revised change order 2?
That's correct.
Jackie?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And then, as long as we're at it, the 2 bills that we discussed, is there a motion to approve those?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And Jeanette, anything else you need to talk to us about?
I don't think so. I'll see you, I guess, one more time regarding Willett.
Okay, and then, before you go, we had a placeholder for the school building committee for next Wednesday, and my understanding
That's right.
is that we're pushing that off to February 19th?
That is what was discussed, and the reason being is that we had originally hoped to get Consigli's final invoicing 100% complete, and they just have one small item that's outstanding related to that backflow preventer, if you will, for the PV.
Yeah.
That has not yet been installed, so we just want to make sure that's 100% complete before before they submit the final invoice. But they did inform me that all of the lights on the front of the high school have been replaced. That whole system was replaced, and that's complete.
Great, because Jerry was asking that question before the meeting started.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's 100% complete, Jerry. I haven't seen it myself, but I will reach out to Jason and just confirm that everything is working better, much better.
How about the panels, the electric panels in the back? Are those?
The PV?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple things going on with those. There's a study that's required by National Grid, and that is separate from the project. There was a whole dialogue back and forth with the mayor and the utility company. All of our work is complete with the exception of that one component that prevents any of the energy from feeding back into the grid. And that's the one tiny item that Griffin has to complete so that we can close out Consigly's contract. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll be done within the next 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so everybody should cross off the 15th in their schedule, put down February 19th in their schedule for a school building committee meeting. And Anjanette, if you are ready for the final closeout on this on the 22nd, we are having a special meeting that is only going to be devoted to the library project. But if you need 5 minutes at the beginning, just let Brooke know and she'll put it on the agenda. Otherwise, the regular February meeting is the 5th. So you'll either be on for the 22nd or the 5th of February.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
That's
Take care.
January 22nd, Jack?
January 22nd, yeah, that is the special meeting that Mark's going to talk about when Mark gets up.
Is that going to be here?
Yes. As far as I know, it's going to be here. We'll talk to Mark in a few minutes. Good night, Anjanette.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, the Water Department. You're up at bat. Why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Good evening, members of the Municipal Building Commission. My name's Matt Crotty. I'm with the City of Attleboro Water Department. I've been with them. I'm in my 24th year now. I was recently promoted on December 29th to Assistant Superintendent, and due to Courtney Allen's resignation, I have been, as of last night, put into Acting Superintendent. We have a consultant coming in on Tuesday. Becky McEnroe is her name, with McEnroe Associates. She's coming in on Tuesday, and she's going to work a couple days throughout the week and help with some of the bigger projects, some of the bigger stuff we have going on, some of the stuff that Matt's talking about as well. So,
Okay. And so virtually we have Matt. Matt, say hi.
How are you guys?
Good.
Thanks for having me tonight.
Okay, so the first item on the Water Department agenda is the Attleboro-Pawtucket Water Interconnection. Where are we on that?
So we're in the final stages of that. We have a couple, I would say we're probably about 2 weeks away from testing to the system. So we have a couple things we're wrapping up, some of it being SCADA. Still testing some of the chemical pumps along with the lift pumps. They've done some of the testing with the water, not with the chemical yet, so they've done some of the closed loop testing. We are in the process of working out the contract with Minuteman, which they do the fire alarm system. So essentially it's a dial out box. If there was an alarm, that system would dial out to the fire department, and then you would have 3 individuals selected that would also be contacted throughout any emergencies or any kind of alarms with this facility. So we're in the final stages with that. We still need to do DEP inspection. They can be available within 24 hours notice. We also would need to do a final bacteria test, but that's something that we would draw, and that would be available, the results, within 24 hours.
So we have not started buying water yet.
We have not. From Pawtucket, we have not. So I think ultimately, we'll have a decision to make, but some of the pump testing that was done, we were able to test, you're testing in a closed loop, so it's through a fire hydrant, and we weren't able to get to the flows that we are approved for. So essentially, we tested to what would be equivalent to 500,000 gallons a day out of the fire hydrant. To fully test what we're approved for, just under the 1,000,000 gallons or at the 1,000,000 gallons, we would have to test that to the system. So the idea would be that we would start off probably around that 500,000 gallon a day flow, slowly work our way up to that 1,000,000 gallons to know that everything is working as designed. But we can't do that without going out to the system, which, as we've talked about, water's traveled a certain way for 100 years in South Attleboro, and essentially you'd be going the other way with it. So there is going to be some disruption. So to minimize that as much as possible, it's not something we want to go just to that 1,000,000 gallons a day. We want to start out and ramp up to those flows with hydrant flushing going on, public notification going on in the process. And I think once we do that test, reaching the 1,000,000 gallons or just under the 1,000,000 gallons, knowing everything, the pumps respond as intended, I think then we're faced with the decision, do we just do the test and have that be that, or is it something we're going to continue to run?
And that may depend on how much rain we get?
Depend on how much rain we get. Also, with what Matt's going to speak to, the decision in about a month, the temporary PFAS,
Yeah.
if we put that online, we're essentially losing 600,000 gallons a day.
Right,
So-
we're gonna go from 2.6 to 2 then at Wading River
We would go from 1.6 to
Oh.
1.
to 1, okay.
We can't do more than 1,000,000 gallons out of the temporary. So there's multiple factors involved, and also you have the Mansfield the hydrant to hydrant. We're doing about just over 150,000 gallons a day. I think the ultimate goal is to not be buying water from other communities, but we want to make sure we're in a situation. So I think ideally, the thing to do would be, the plant with the temporary plant, the money's invested in that. We want to put out as quality of a product as possible. So I think, in approximately a month, when that temporary plant is ready to go, as much as we'd like to gain that 600,000 gallons staying on the plant we're on now, I think the idea is to put out as best product we can, and that's going to be through the PFAS temporary. So, but you do have that weighing that you're losing the 600,000, so.
Right, we don't make those policy decisions. You
Right.
do with the advice and consent of the mayor, I'm sure.
Right.
But we're just curious, and I'm sure there are people out there in the public, because there are tens of people who watch these meetings, and they may be interested. So I'm glad that you gave us that update on it.
Right, so like I said, I think ideally, the goal is we have a great watershed, so I think the goal is to replenish that. Naturally, we're pumping up to Manchester on a regular basis to get that back to where it should be. A rain would obviously help, but I think the goal is to not be giving money to not be buying water from other communities. So I think ultimately, we would put out, go onto the PFAS plant at the 1,000,000 gallons a day. And I think we would just have to see, we would test the Pawtucket interconnection to find out that everything works as intended and as it should. And I think we should shut that down so that we're not purchasing that water and not putting out that money. So maybe, I think the goal would be to go on the temporary Mansfield plant, test Pawtucket, shut that down, and let us refill through Mother Nature and through the pumping. And we can cross the bridge with bringing water down from Hopping Hill to assist with pumping up to Manchester. And I think there's other factors involved as well, as in the ozone system that's being shipped out now. That will allow us this upcoming season to stay on Orr's Pond longer than we maybe have in past years before we switch over to Manchester. So I think we can extend switching over to Manchester this year with the assistance of the ozone system being implemented, because we'll be able to treat the manganese. And that's the ultimate reason why we switch over to Manchester, because the manganese gets high in Orr's Pond. But if we have the ozone system in place, we don't need to make that switch as quickly this year, and we can allow Manchester to recuperate.
I seem to have read somewhere that we bring water from Manchester to mix with Orr's Pond so that the manganese level gets diluted. Is that what happens?
That was the practice this past year and years past, but this year, this upcoming season, we're gonna look to stay on Orr's Pond longer and not do the blending. You know, that will be, you know, a day or two or something just to move forward. It's not gonna be an extended blending period.
And how's Manchester doing?
We are at 138.6, so we still have some ways to go there, but
What was our lowest?
our lowest, I would have to look back.
It was around 135-ish, maybe?
I would have to look back, but we did get
But
low.
we're definitely moving in the right direction.
We're definitely moving in the right direction. So the process is essentially, we have water naturally through the rain. Hoppin Hill feeds down to Luther Dam. So what we have now is, there's a bascule gate, which is essentially the dam. We have that pitched to hold back more water than previous, allowing us to pump up more water to Manchester. So, and we're also in a situation now, we're speaking to running the Pawtucket. Orr's Pond is even. So there's no sense for us to be buying water from Pawtucket if we have right in front of the West Street facility water available. Now, if we start draining that down, then I think we revisit that. But if we have the water right there at our facility, there's no need to be paying in other communities for it. And granted, so that is the goal, to not be paying other communities for water, to replenish Manchester, stay on Orr's Pond longer this year to allow things to recuperate, and have that be that. Treat these connections as what they were originally intended for, emergency connections. It's great to have sources of water. We're very fortunate to have the watershed that we do, but I think Pawtucket was intended as an emergency connection. It was not intended as a source. So until we need,
And that was our understanding all along, was that if some disaster happened to the West Street plant, you know, it went down for some reason. Don't want to speculate what those reasons might be, but nasty people sometimes do nasty things. So this was always meant to keep the city operational rather than to supplement a drought.
right, we have, like I said, a great watershed, so it's time to replenish it, and we don't want to be spending money where it doesn't need to be spending. Granted, we did get in a drought, we did have that, but with measures we have in place, and with, like I said, you might have to, you know, weigh out whether, you know, if we don't decide, if we treat Pawtucket as an emergency connection, if we just do the testing and then shut it down, we might have to revisit that at some point and say, listen, we could use some assistance here, but because of the price of difference between Mansfield, we're very thankful for what Mansfield has done for us. But we are capped at what we can receive from them. And, you know, you're talking around a half a cent a gallon from Pawtucket compared to a cent and a half from Mansfield. So, like I said, we're very thankful for what Mansfield has done for us. But going forward, it's obviously more economical to receive water from Pawtucket if we need to.
Okay, good. Anybody have any questions on that project?
When's the anticipated, if you want to call it the live test? Because it sounds like it needs to be done in warm weather conditions with hydrant flushing and.
Granted, it doesn't, you look on the forecast and we're seeing nothing but 20s and 30s. So ideally, you'd like to have warmer weather. It's not something we're trying to flush hydrants to the street and then have ice forming and that type of thing. But I think this is something that we need to know it works. You know, we've taken it this far, so we're obviously going to keep an eye on the weather. But you know, it might have to be something where we're using hoses to divert water and that type of thing. It's not something we want to be doing in 20.
So it's anticipated to go in the immediate future as opposed to waiting till the spring, is what you're saying? Like
Absolutely.
okay.
We would like to wrap this up and know that everything is working
Extend
as
it.
intended and have that be that. So I think we need to test it to the system to know
And then do what you
we
need to
can
do.
reach those
with it.
flows. And like I said, maybe it's only a couple day thing where we start off at the 500,000, get close to that million, back it off and shut it down, to just know that everything works as it should. And we can revisit it if, months down the line, we say, hey, we could use some assistance here. But it's done through an economical situation. So, but the goal is definitely to do this on our own. We appreciate the interconnection that this has come to fruition, and we appreciate what Mansfield's done for us. But we have a great watershed, and we'd like to meet our demands on our own.
Is there a period of time where that live test needs to hold at the 100 or whatever it is,
No,
million?
I mean, we'd obviously not just gonna hit it and then ramp it right down, but it's not something, I mean, you see how the pumps react to it, you see that the chemical pumps are pacing as they should with the increase and decrease in flow, but even this isn't a big treatment plant. This is something that was intended as, there's no bathroom there, was very much meant as an emergency connection. So the chemical tanks, everything is very small scale. So it's basically to see that everything functions as it should. There's no issues. If there's issues, we'll address them, but the goal is to just know that everything works as intended, and that's stuff that will have to be operated every couple of months just to make sure things work correctly, but that's something we can do in a closed loop. We can do that out of the hydrants right on the property. It doesn't have to always go out to the system just to run the pumps. It can be done in a closed loop where it doesn't go out to the system.
Would there be any benefit to doing the live tests to make sure that the system works at 100% versus 50%? If you're constantly testing at 50%, and then if there is a need, and we think it goes to 100, then there is, like, do you know what I
There's
mean?
definitely that we can only test it to a certain point in that closed loop. That's why we do need to go out to the system to get up to the numbers that we're approved to. We want to go, in case the need arises, we want to go to that close to 1 million gallons a day, and we can't do that without going to the system.
Right, so after the initial live test,
Yep.
will the ongoing testing or functioning, when do you, will there be another time that it goes back to that 100%, unless it's only being used?
Really, the idea with going to the 100% is because that's what we're approved for. So we want to know that if there is an intent at any point for whatever situation, if it is an emergency situation and we do need to feed the 1 million gallons a day, we want to know that that equipment works correctly. So we don't have to,
Right, but are we only doing that, is the city only testing it once to the 100%?
unless we're going to stay online and treat it as a source, we can stay at that 1 million gallons a day if we want. But the goal with the testing is to reach that, see how everything responds, and then back it down and shut it off essentially,
And then only turn it on once a quarter to exercise the system.
which could be in a closed loop where it doesn't have to go out.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All right, then I guess we can move on to the Wading River plant, and we'll start with the temporary PFAS. Is that you, or is that going to be
Matt's
Matt
going to
Barry?
speak. Matt's going to speak to the Mansfield stuff. If
And
you,
Matt Barry, you're up.
Sure. Just to circle back to those Mansfield reservoir levels, Matt, from my records from the emails you've sent, the reservoir was as low as 134.3. And Matt probably said that they're up to 138.6. So they've brought the reservoir up 4.3 feet so far. So that's all good news just for your reference on those reservoir levels.
Good, good. We're glad to hear that. I mean, I think we had about 7 inches of rain in December.
that 4 inches that we got in that 2 days really gave us the head start we needed.
And I know Mike Tyler doesn't want it to snow, so he's probably praying for just a lot of cold rain, right?
Yep. But unfortunately, we don't see any in the immediate future, but that's the goal.
Okay. All right, so Matt, talk to us about PFAS.
So the temporary building, construction has been ongoing for just almost a year now. But we are nearing close to substantial completion. Within the next couple weeks, we should be getting close to preparing for startup. This week, we pressure tested the entire system, which that pressure test passed, and we chlorinated 2 days ago, flushed the system today, and we expect to take samples for bacteria tomorrow. We should hopefully have those samples back towards the end of the week or Monday. So once all of those samples come back, we will then be ready to install the media, the actual media that goes inside the vessels, which should be shipping this coming Friday, January 10th. And I don't have the actual date for when we expect that media to arrive, or where it's coming from. I don't have that information from the contractor, but I would expect that media to show up within the next week or so. So then that media gets loaded into the vessels. Once the media is in the vessels, we would backwash both vessels. And then we're essentially ready to begin startup, where we can start pumping water through the vessels, testing the operations, and then testing, obviously, the finished water to make sure that it is PFAS free. Once we sort of get working through that PFAS, or once we get working through the startup, it would also include a Mass DEP inspection to make sure that we have their blessing as well. So we're looking towards probably the end of January for startup, and hopefully early to mid-February to actually run the system at 100% to start putting out 1 million gallons a day of PFAS-free water.
Good, good. I don't see any bills on our agenda. I see Brooke is in the back now. Hi, Brooke. You can feel free to sit closer if you want, Brooke.
I actually sent them an email today to ask them, now that the vessels are installed, the vessels were actually a fairly large ticket item. They're supposed to be sending us a draft pay app for work through the end of December, so we can get that over to you once we receive it.
Okay, we probably will act on that on our February 5th meeting.
Okay.
Any questions on that aspect? Okay, then permanent.
Yeah, the temporary was an easy one. The permanent's a little bit more complicated. But we're making some great progress there. Essentially, all the permitting is complete. All the local permitting is done through the town of Mansfield, with the Conservation Commission, with the Planning Department. We have the order of conditions, we have the decision from the Planning Board. We do have some minor comments on the stormwater to coordinate with the town engineer, but that's minor. So all the local permitting is complete. As far as the state permitting, we have Mass DEP approval. We also have the environmental notification form, which was approved. And the only remaining state approval is the SRF approval, which is for the funding. SRF essentially gives us approval to bid. We expect that pretty much any day now, because we have 2 other treatment plants that are currently under design and also going through the SRF program. We know that one of those other plants are getting their approval this Friday, which is, I believe that's a central region. So it's a different region than Attleboro, but they all kind of work together, so we're hoping that Attleboro's not too far behind on that approval to bid. There is sort of a catch-22, and Matt, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but we just got this information tonight. All of the PFAS-related projects under the intended use plan for 2025 are subject to BABA requirements, which is Build America, Buy America. Those requirements essentially require a fairly significant amount of equipment within the building, materials and equipment to be made within the United States. And that complicates things a lot, because a lot of these parts actually there are items that actually are manufactured where parts of certain pieces of equipment are manufactured overseas, they get brought to the United States, and they get assembled in the United States. Even something like that does not meet the requirements of BABA. So initially, about 6 months ago, we were told by Mass DEP that BABA would not apply to these projects. We just found out earlier this week that these BABA requirements apply to one of our other projects. Just confirmed tonight that it does apply to Attleboro as well. It's heavy on our shoulders to make sure that we still meet our deadlines, which we don't foresee it being a huge hiccup. It's just a lot more work for us on our end to get our specifications tight before they go out to bid. So that being said, before I move into the timeline for what we expect for bidding, notice of for bidding, bid opening, award of the contract, so on and so forth, I can kind of explain to you the implications of BABA, and that pretty much main implication is going to be cost. We do have our cost estimate, which we put together and shared with the city. This was towards probably around Thanksgiving-ish or so. Unfortunately, when you start talking about BABA requirements, it increases the cost. It could be upwards of 25%. We have had conversations with general contractors. How does BABA affect these projects? And that was kind of the number that was thrown out to us.
So are you
also,
talking about $7.5 million?
That's probably what we're looking at as far as, so give or take, that could be something that we're looking at as far as cost implications of the BABA requirements.
So let me ask you, first of all, I doubt we have enough money to absorb a $7.5 million hit. And secondly, is there any way that we can go through the politicians, through our congressmen, our senators, to try and get an exemption from this? Because the money that we have in the bond isn't going to be enough, right?
So we do have sort of a plan in place. We had a plan in place initially because our estimate came in a few million dollars over what was appropriated through the bond and the loan or whatever is appropriated to the city. I believe it was somewhere around 35 million. Our estimate back, our latest estimate was back. Do I have a date on this? At right around the beginning of November. Came in around 39 million. So we had a plan with the city once the bids come in to go back through council and have an additional loan order ready to be authorized if the need came up for additional funding. That was a fairly small amount for 2 or 3 million. But now when we start talking about BABA requirements and the overall cost implications of this, that's a fairly significant amount. DEP does recognize the implications of this. In the past, DEP has been able to waive BABA requirements. But unfortunately, the way that it's explained in the email that I got from our vice president who spoke to Mike McGrath over at DEP, who's in charge of the Central Region for SRF funding, is that the actual money that they are getting for these PFAS projects are coming from the feds. And the feds are the ones who hold the power as far as these BABA requirements. So anything that comes down to any type of waiver that we need to get is through the feds. It's not even at a local level. So to kind of back up a little bit, our main processes, our MIEX process, our green sand process, our PFAS process, a lot of that technology is going to have to be some sort of a waiver because there is no substitute. There is no substitute for MIEX. There is no substitute for green sand. There is no substitute for the Fluorosorb that we are using for PFAS removal. So we will be submitting waivers for those. Those waivers need to be approved and in place prior to purchasing those materials. So we do have some time to obtain those waivers. There is also a lot of work on our end as the engineer where the items that we would specify that don't necessarily meet BABA requirements. It's sort of up to us to backpedal, do some more research, and start trying to nail down some items that do meet BABA requirements. The nice thing is there are some manufacturers who have anticipated this. They've started to work with, especially with the American Iron and Steel Act, which has been out for some time. BABA is somewhat similar, but it's far more strict as far as the American Iron and Steel Act goes. It's kind of next level. So it's up to us as the engineer to go through the spec, try to come up with alternative materials that meet those BABA requirements, and do our best where we can sort of value engineer this for the city. Get those items into the spec ahead of time, so when contractors are going through their bid, they're looking at prices, they know the BABA requirements apply. We already have those items essentially vetted and spec'd out. So it's sort of easier on the contractor, and it's gonna save them time, it's gonna save them legwork, it's gonna save them money. So we really have our work cut out for us, between now and when we plan on going out to bid. But that's kind of the BABA requirement that about 2 hours ago, I hadn't planned on dropping that bomb on you tonight, but that bomb got dropped on me, about an hour and 20 minutes ago.
So would it be fair, so would it be fair
I
to
just
say
wanna-
that the mayor does not know anything about this?
The mayor doesn't know this. Matt's hearing this for the first time. Matt, we're gonna have to set up a meeting with.
With the mayor and
I
the
wanna say,
the mayor and the finance team.
your
certainly.
financing department. We're gonna have to talk about this and start to just kind of get this laid out on the table and get everyone on board.
And then, but what I was, because it's federal, I'm wondering if the mayor wouldn't then be the appropriate person to start talking to our senators and our representative in Congress about whether there's anything that can be done to help us out here. I know that when we were building the high school, we had a problem with the steel coming in from Canada that actually had been made in Alabama and shipped north of us to be fabricated and back. And I remember our congressman was very helpful in getting the 10% tariff waived. So I think we ought to make sure that the mayor and our finance team know about this right away. But I think she also probably needs to be in touch with our political representatives to see if there's anything that can be done to ease this, because if we're talking about being a couple $1 million over and then adding another 7 or something to it, $10 million over is that's a kick in the head.
It sure is. It was a surprise to us. I mean, it's going to be hard for us to pull this together in the timeline that we have to do, but we're going to do it. You know, we're here to make this happen for you guys. But you know, Matt, we can have sort of a separate conversation about this whole BABA thing and get the mayor and financing and everyone sort of pulled in and you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but don't
Well,
shoot the messenger.
No, I mean, it's better that we
we're,
found out now than 6 months from now, so.
Right.
But at least it gives us some
We're gonna
time
work through
to.
this with you, and we're gonna do the best to get you the best price, obviously, that we can.
Yeah.
So that being said, our goal here is to essentially have a package pulled together by the end of January to put out to bid by January 29th.
Okay, so let me stop you right there. We need to have the owner's project manager on board, so where are we on that?
That doesn't sit with us, Matt. I'm not sure if the city has any additional update on the OPM.
I don't believe I have an update on it as of now.
I believe to the best of my
Brooke is in the
knowledge
back.
that the
Brooke, could you
that the
come forward,
OPM
please?
You want me to come forward?
Yeah,
Oh, I was hiding.
no.
I was here for that question. I reached out to Mason and sent him a message trying to get an answer on the OPM.
So we
That way
don't,
know where we are.
so do we know if it went out on the street? And do we know when bids are due? Do we know when we'll be shortlisting to interview people? Or do we not know anything?
Right now, we don't know anything. We do have a timeline, but we need to speak to Mason.
Okay,
Sorry.
so, because I don't know that we can put a package out in the street without having the OPM on board.
I believe the OPM is set up for construction services, not for design and bidding. That's how that was put together to the best of my knowledge.
Well, that's another thing we need to know. So at this point, we're not telling people to put on their schedule to spend a night interviewing because we don't know when the bids are coming in. Okay, well, stay tuned.
So at least the schedule for now, and again, the OPM should not hold up bidding. The OPM, I believe, was just scheduled for construction services, which wouldn't be needed until after July 1st.
But essentially, it's the SRF funding that would hold things up.
It would be correct. Yep, it would be BABA requirements and essentially SRF approval that could potentially slow things down.
So your calendar at this point was to have stuff on the street by the 1st of February for the for the bids?
Correct. So that would allow documents available on January 29th and essentially a bid opening on March 12th.
And is this a filed sub-bid project?
Correct. So that would include 4 weeks for sub-bids and 2 weeks for general. So sub-bids would be opened in February, the general would be opened in March. And then this was the schedule we talked about back when we submitted our estimate back at the end of October, early November, when we talked all about the financing aspect of this. So that particular schedule for bidding and the bid opening allows us to get through council, have a hearing, allows council to vote on any additional funding, allows that funding to be signed and then sit on the mayor's desk for 30 days before receiving its final signature, which would put us around the middle of May. The reason why that's so important is because having essentially an awarded contract by June 30th gives the city principal forgiveness, which I believe is somewhere around 6 to 7%, which is a significant amount on the cost of this project.
It could be getting bigger.
That number just keeps going up. So whatever we can do we as Tater and Howard have never missed the June 30th date for principal forgiveness, and we don't intend to miss that this time around either. So
that
we want to make
means-
sure we hit that date, have the contract awarded, make sure the city gets principal forgiveness to make sure that you have those millions of dollars in your pocket to use somewhere else.
So then, when we know firmly what the bid date will be, this commission will have to make a recommendation to the mayor as to acceptance of a bid. So we don't have to deal with this now, but whenever the final bidding date has been established, let Brooke know as to how much time you need to evaluate the bids to make a recommendation to us. And then it may be that at our meeting on the first Wednesday in April, we would vote on it, but if you need something sooner than that, we'll hold a special meeting. We'll do whatever you need to make the schedule work, because 6 or 7% forgiveness is a significant number.
Especially after
Sure. No,
hearing.
we appreciate that. The nice thing is that this project falls under Mass DEP requirements for pre-qualification because it's over $10 million. So all the sub bidders and all of the general contractors are already pre-qualified. So we don't need to go and look at the sub bidders. We don't need to go look at the general contractors. We don't need to do reference checks. We don't need to do finances. All of that has already been completed. All of that has already been shared with the city. Sub bidders and general contractors have already been notified that they pre-qualify. So there's only a certain number of sub bidders and general contractors who can actually bid on this project. You have to be pre-qualified. So our review of the bid is strictly just going to be kind of just a document review of what we require to be submitted as part of the bid.
Yeah.
It'll be relatively quick, so our recommendation turnaround will be fairly quick.
So what date were you guessing that would be?
We would like to look at issuing a recommendation of award on or around 3/12.
3/12, okay. So would you want us to schedule a meeting for the 12th or for the 19th of March?
The next council hearing after the 12th, I believe, is the 18th. So the 19th would probably be good, because then we could get council's input, and have you guys accept the bid on the 19th, at which point, then council can have their hearing on either the 2nd or the 9th regarding, acceptance of the bid from NBC. And then I believe council could actually vote on the funding on the 15th.
Okay, so Brooke, our February meeting is the 5th, our March meeting is the 5th, and then we're gonna have a special meeting on March 19th.
So we can sort of make that tentative, and if that changes, then we can reach out to Brooke and.
Yeah, we can change anything on 48 hours' notice, but in
Okay.
my mind, it's better to get it in your calendar and take it out
Great.
than to not have it in and try and put it in later.
Great, that works for us.
Okay,
If for some reason there's an addendum or someone requests an extension of the bid, then we can work with it and go from there.
yep, okay. Any other news you have for us?
That was the big one. The
I hope so.
schedule, outside of bidding an award, we'd look at probably breaking ground sometime in the fall, maybe mid-September, early October. And then it's probably gonna be about a 2-year, construction project.
Yeah, so we were
we'd probably
looking at the,
sometime around the end of 2027 for start.
okay, and that's consistent with what we've been told earlier.
Correct.
Okay, well, anybody got any questions? Everyone's sitting here stunned. So, any other information you need to give us on this project?
On the permanent plant, not at this time, no.
Okay, anything you want to add, Matt?
No, I think that covers it. I think, obviously, that's not great news. I think, like you referenced, last month, the tariffs were something to be concerned with, but I think hearing the 25% number is,
Yeah, I mean, I just know that when our congressmen and our senators get involved, sometimes it can help the process with the federal government. I'm sure the state government doesn't want to increase this, because then we'd be asking them to increase the SRF funding, right?
Correct.
So everybody has an incentive to find a way to soften the blow. Okay. All right, well, then we'll see you guys for an update on February 5th.
I was
And,
gonna say, I think I'll be at the next meeting on February 5th, because by then we should have a better idea on what we're looking at for the battery requirements. We should be up to bid, and we'll have some more information for you then.
okay, excellent. Thank you.
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
You too.
You too.
All right, well, Mark Zawatsky, you got a tough act to follow here.
Just going to say that, Mr. Chairman. The person on the bottom of the screen is not me. I see triple me. Anyway, good evening. How are you?
We're doing fine. We're cold.
So, an update on the library. See Brian Valentine. So, we've been very busy interacting with the library staff and looking at a number of alternative designs. And I'll just throw up some of the preliminary options that have been and scanned through quickly as we are walking and talking our way through. This is the first floor of the library. This is the children's area that I'm circling here. And we've had, this is option 1, and then there's been another option, a little busier one. So I just want to report tonight that we've been working the process really, really well. LOD's been a great partner in giving us alternative design concepts, giving the library community in the city in general multiple options for them to look at and consider. So this DD level, design development level, has been progressing nicely, and we look forward to the special meeting on January 22nd to present a comprehensive package that will include cost estimating, that will include understanding of the hazmat results that were conducted on December 30th. We're going to have a presentation of phasing in the different phasing options that we've come up with, and have IAQ, indoor air quality baseline monitoring, and a plan or presentation of tests during each of the phases to ensure that there are no odors that are impactful to human end users and staff during the different phases of construction. We had discussed the project being performed in a single phase where the library would be closed down for a shorter period of time rather than go through a phased construction project. The cost estimator is evaluating what the cost impact of 4 phases versus 1 or fewer would look like. We've looked at a variety of a list of alternates that we're putting together, and also how to prioritize them. So just a very quick update that basically informs the MBC that we are really working the process well, and look forward to presenting the recommendations of the library board, staff, and the owner and architect consultant teams.
And we're going to do that next Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays, the 22nd, over at the Zito Room, correct?
Yes.
So that way we'll know that no one else will be looking to kick us out early.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'd like to also report that it's our goal that when we leave that meeting, we'll have answered all of your questions, and we will be able to receive authorization or your direction to be able to progress forward to construction documentation and ultimately go out to bid in order to maintain the overall project schedule. As you recall, the request was to complete the project prior to September 30th. It's based on the time durations for procurement of the advertisements, procurement of contractors, signing the contracts, and then making submittals and ordering lead times. It's very important that we stay on schedule in order to meet the community's timeline as presented.
do we have any stuff that the city solicitor can look at sooner rather than later, like front end of contracts and that sort of stuff?
Right, so I had asked, and LOB is in the process of preparing a draft AIA A101 contract for owner contractor for the different vendors. We're going to have 2 contracts, perhaps one for moving and one for flooring, and then 2. I will be forwarding to LOB some of the front-end documents that have been used previously on other municipal projects that Port has been involved in, but we didn't want to violate any kind of copyright infringement, and understanding that the city does not have boilerplate front-end documents. I did give them a list of items that are we need to be attentive to based on prior work that Port did on the roof of the library in terms of staging, in terms of dumpster locations, in terms of parking, and other similar such items. And also I've received a list of concerns, issues, and process from the library staff in terms of hours and all of that other stuff. But I think I may have suggested in the past that the NBC consider, either having the solicitor or a partner generate a list of municipal front-end documents that can be replicated and used by all future design teams, so that you're always working with the same baseline understanding of working on municipal buildings, smoking, radios, et cetera. So, the specific language, I think, could be, for the city, some boilerplate could be generated. So we're doing the best we can with what we have.
Okay, so Brooke is going to let Mason know that that's on his to-do list when he comes back from military service.
I don't know where on the prioritization list it is, but I'm sure it's a long list.
Yeah, so is he back at the end of March?
I think the beginning of April.
Beginning of April. Okay,
So that's a brief update. We had indicated that we weren't really going to be presenting any new information, asking for any approvals or anything.
Right.
We just wanted to inform the NBC that the process, that we're well in process, and that we appreciate the January 22nd special meeting so that we can have the time necessary for LLB to put on the comprehensive presentation of the recommendations that have been generated to date, and inform about move management, air quality, hazardous materials, and costs.
And-
I believe we're in good shape on a cost basis, based on the square footage, based on the material costs, and how I understand the labor and the process of this. So I'm not going to be like Matt was in the previous meeting and tell you it's going to cost $6 million more.
good. Because it isn't even $6 million total. So who is reminding Amy, and I assume some of her board members might want to be there?
Yes.
They had a conflict this evening, sir, and that's
Well, no,
why
I understand
they're
that,
not
but I'm just
in attendance,
saying-
But they are aware of the 22nd and will be there.
Okay, good, excellent.
And I'll be there in person, and I understand LLB will also be in person at the Zito Room on the 22nd to make an in-person presentation.
Okay, is that someone from LLB who's up there at the top of our screen?
Yes, hi, Brian Valentine, Principal with LLB Architects. Thank you, Mark, for covering the, where we are currently. We feel very comfortable with the package. The cost estimator has that right now. As Mark mentioned, we are drafting alternates and getting the phasing in order. And the hazmat team has taken their samples. They're evaluating those results, and those will be back to us very shortly. Meetings with the move manager occurred, and that they are currently cataloging the library this week. And the indoor air quality team is developing a schedule as we get closer to putting this out to bid. So we'll have that all updated for the 22nd.
Excellent. We have two bills. Mark, are you recommending we pay the LLB bill for $7,356.70?
Yes.
And Brooke, are you recommending we pay Mark's bill for $2,175?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So, thank you. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks unless anybody has any questions.
I just have one note, if there are no questions. Are there any questions for us?
I don't-
And I just wanted to inform the NBC of an item, and I just wanted to make you aware of it.
Go ahead.
So I received a contact from Bill McDonough regarding on the Council on Aging, a project that I looked at about 7 years ago. And he's asked me for a proposal for some services to assist the city. And I just wanted to make you aware that you'll be seeing a document from Port to assist the city. And, I just don't know where that project sits within the overall list of needs.
Well, that's a little confusing to us because we're not sure what exactly anybody's talking about. Are you talking about assisting the city with putting out an RFP for what the council passed a month or two ago?
I don't know what the council passed. This is for mechanical units to basically provide construction consulting for the procurement RFQ for designer services, and then ultimately any clerk of the work services that may be required on an a la carte basis. Yes, sir.
Oh, is this for the current Council on Aging building on South Main Street?
25 South Main
Oh,
Street.
okay.
For mechanical units.
That's what was confusing, because there's a potential that something would be built at Highland, and the mayor was gonna put out an RFP for that to see if a private developer, so that's not that. This is rehabbing to some degree the current building so it can stay in operation?
And for compliance with air quality and functionality
Okay.
for mechanical ventilation. Yes, sir.
Okay, now, it makes a lot more sense now, okay. So
I
if,
just wanted to make you aware, just so when you saw something, you didn't know it came out of the blue.
okay, well, we appreciate that, and I assume that whatever that project is, the mayor will assign it to us to oversee, hopefully. And as always, we know the quality of your work and look forward to working with you.
And thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing you in person on the 22nd. Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good evening.
Likewise, good night.
All right, we're at 6:31. Is there anything else we need to do? Then a motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.